Trump won, the Republicans won, and won big. Kamala Harris lost, and the Democrats lost big. Why and how did this happen? Well, I'm going to do a breakdown right now. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Cylinder Radio. I'm your host, Will Roosh, educator in Los Angeles, bringing viewpoint diversity to the mainstream. Okay, nuance is what we're all about here. So let's dive into the 2024 election. It happened yesterday that I'm recording this. I'm going to go over 6 things that I think led to the result being what it is. Because the Republicans typically don't win the popular vote. Which is why you hear Democrats always saying, like, let's go back to the popular vote, or let's go to the popular vote and let's not do the electoral college. Well, they're not saying that now, are they? Okay. So it's essentially winning the popular vote, winning the Senate, keeping the House, and winning the presidency with the popular vote is a big deal. This is the red wave that everyone said was going to happen and never did. So, all right. So a couple of things. I'm going to go over 6 different things. First one is, like James Carville famously said, it's the economy, stupid. Okay. The economy is not doing well. And as much as the Biden administration and Kamala Harris say, like, well, it's turning around and things are getting better. Like, people who know, it's more about how you calculate inflation that changes. They just change how they calculate it and manipulate the numbers and then say, look, it's really, really good. People aren't falling for it because they're living it. And if you're living in a situation, you're going to the grocery store day in and day out, then you know what the prices are. You look at your bank account, you know this. It's like, if you go outside and rain is falling from the sky and they say, well, no, actually the meteorologist is like, no, it's perfectly fine outside. It's a sunny day. It's like, but it's not. So it just fits into that narrative of, like, we're being lied to. I talked before, I said Trump is a BSer, but Kamala Harris and, like, the Biden administration, a lot of the Democrats are liars. Not to say that liars don't exist in the Republican side as well, but it's lying and people just aren't buying it, So I think that was obviously a big factor in bringing in a businessman who has a track record of when he was in office before the global pandemic, the economy was doing well. Okay. Now he thinks in a business sense. Bernie Sanders tweeted just a few moments ago. He said, it should come as no surprise to the Democratic Party that abandoned the laborers and the working class of America, that the working class of America would abandon them. That's spot on. Bernie is spot on with that. And it goes back to economist Pia Milani had this idea about how that happened, because traditionally it was the Republicans that were, like, advocating for the elite to be in power. And then it was the Democrats that were advocating for the working class. But the problem with advocating for the working class is you have to deliver things like better wages and better working conditions that negatively affect the wealthiest people in the country. So where did all the donors go? To the Republicans, and the Republicans were winning and winning and winning. I mean, Bill Clinton won in 1992 largely because of Ross Perot. I mean, it was going to be George H.W. Bush again. It would have been, Reagan, Bush again. That would have been 4 elections. That's, 16 years of straight Republicans. And a lot of that was because of the donors. So the Democrats said, all right, well, we can't really be the working class anymore because we have to deliver for them. So Pia Milani's theory is that they switched from being the party of the working class to the party of identity. And I think you see that everywhere. It's like, we stand with you, Puerto Ricans. You don't have to deliver anything for Puerto Ricans. You just say, we stand with you. We identify you. And if you do that, then that's sufficient. During the George Floyd stuff, it was all the Democrats, like, taking a knee and throwing up the fists. Like, we see you women. We see you LGBTQ. Not that you're pushing any kind of actual policy to help them. It's just becoming a party of identity when they're both corporate parties. Now they're both party of the elite. And we know that. We look at donations and everything. So I think that the economy is obviously a big factor in this one. The second one is when Kamala Harris, and she said it on The View, but then she just doubled down on it, on this idea when asked point blank, what would you do differently than Joe Biden? She said, nothing comes to mind. And then she said, like, well, you don't critique, the president as the vice president. It's like, people don't want to hear that. There was a poll that something like 70% of Americans thought that America was on the wrong pathway, the wrong trajectory. So you can't say you're not going to do anything differently. Like, you can honor your president and say, like, he's great, blah, blah, blah. But we have, new information coming here, and we're going to roll with the punches and we're going to adjust. Like, she could have done that, but whether she's not savvy enough to recognize that, or she was just playing it playing it careful. It was a bad move. It was a bad move to say you're not going to do anything differently than a person with extremely low approval rating and people that, someone that people are not happy with. So I think that was a huge mistake of Kamala Harris. And I think that she had opportunities to say like, all right, actually here are some things. Like she should have thought about it with her handlers and said that. But again, that just goes back with the narrative that I think a lot of people subscribe to, and I tend to as well, that Joe Biden isn't really the one calling the shots, that he is the front-facing kind of symbol for the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party, as like, for a pejorative term, like puppet masters, it could be the Obamas, then the Clintons, it could be big donors, it could be Pelosi and Schumer. I mean, I don't know, but clearly there was a coordinated effort in 2020 to have Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg and all drop out at the same time and endorse Joe Biden. It was like this, it was too like organized to be organic. And you look at Joe Biden, he's like clearly doesn't have all his faculties and things like that, but yet he's still in charge because who's actually running the show? And it would make sense then that Kamala Harris would just be a continuation of that because she is, again, like a team player. She's a corporate lady and she'll just do what the company wants. In this case, I think the company is the DNC. So that just like, I think that kind of made people on edge. They're like, all right, well then it's just going to be more of this. And if your life isn't better off, the poll was actually like, is your life better off, worse off, or the same as 4 years ago? And 70% said worse off or the same. Then I need something new. I need something different. I mean, our election cycle goes that way. It's like you vote in, the incumbent if things are going well, and if they're not, then you get them out. If the pandemic wouldn't have hit in 2020, I would assume that Trump would have gotten reelected. I don't know. But the pandemic was enough to say like, all right, we need someone who's gonna solve this problem in a real way because people are so scared. The third thing is the Joe Rogan interview. And to people that aren't like privy to the Joe Rogan interview or the JRE experience, his podcast, it's the biggest podcast on the planet. It's the biggest media platform on the planet, I believe, or one of them. And the way that Joe does it is they're long form. I mean, it's him, one engineer who just stays out of it all, Jamie, and then there's the guest. And it's the two of them sitting across from a table having a conversation for hours. He does some that are like 4 hours. The average is 3 hours. So Trump sat in for 3 hours. It's very easy to cover up who you actually are in 15 minutes, 10 minutes. But when it's 3 hours with a very curious individual, and Joe Rogan's nothing special, he's just very, very curious. And a very curious person who's going to ask questions, I think it reveals a lot of who you are, and it shows a lot of transparency, and it builds trust. And I talked to people and heard interviews with people that said, like, it was that interview that got me to go to Trump when I was undecided before. And Joe Rogan was very open. He said, if she doesn't want to talk about things, I won't talk about them. I just want to know who she is as a person. I can't tell. I can't get through all of the mask and the cover of being a politician to see, like, who are you really? Let's just have a conversation as two humans. And Kamala Harris didn't do it. And I think it was a mistake. Not just because of Joe Rogan, but because 3 hours of her answering questions and just talking like a normal person would make her feel more human. And Trump, as wild and goofy and weird as he is, you see like the humanity in him, which is, a lot of people struggle to see that, but you see that in 3 hours. You listen to it, you're like, oh, I kind of get him. Like, I understand what he is. He's a goofy guy, but I know someone like him. My grandfather's like him. My uncle's is like him. And I think Kamala Harris choosing instead to go do puff pieces, edited 60-minute pieces, or Saturday Night Live where everyone's just cheering, you're so wonderful, Kamala Harris. It's like, that's not going to win over the undecided voters. And I think that was a mistake. I really do. I think that, now across X and YouTube and Spotify and all of those, I think it's like over 100 million views. That's massive. I mean, that's more than voted for Donald Trump to win this election. He got like 74 million. I mean, it's a lot of people, a lot. Is that going to win some people over? Yeah. Is it going to turn people away from her? Maybe, but she lost and she was behind in the polls. So what do you got to lose? I mean, look, if you reveal who you actually are and the people don't like it, you shouldn't get the job. You shouldn't get the job then, sorry, but that's just the reality. It's like you're ill-equipped. People don't like you. Now they know who you are. They don't like you. Do you want to get elected just because people don't know who you are? So I think that was a mistake. The fourth one is I think that people are tired of the identity politics thing. Huffington Post said, Donald Trump ran the most racist, sexist campaign ever, and he won. It just shows how far down we are. But like, I don't know. I don't know how many people take the Huffington Post seriously anymore. I think people are sick of it. I think a lot of stuff came out post George Floyd and all that they're just like, all right, I'm tired of this. And like, I get it. She's a woman of color and she's Black and she's Indian and she is, a woman and all this stuff. Like, but I don't think a lot of people saw this. A lot did, for sure. But I think a lot of people who were undecided did not see it as a white man versus a woman of color. It just doesn't matter. We're getting to the point that Martin Luther King wanted us to get to, which is judge a person by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. We're getting to that point. We were getting to that point in the 90s. And then all the kind of craziness, like, quote unquote woke stuff came in. Douglas Murray talks about this. He talks about how a train was like pulling up to the station to just finish racism, and then it just sped right through. Part of this may be identity politics I was talking about, because it's a great thing to like catch people using media. If it bleeds, it leads. But I don't think that running as a woman of color and the first female president and woman empowerment, I just didn't seem to hit. Maybe it did with some people, and maybe this is just kind of my paradigm because I've been speaking out against that stuff for so long. But I think a lot of people are sick of it. You watch Am I Racist with Matt Walsh, and a lot of the people that you'd think are like racist just said the same thing. They're like, I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care. Are you nice to me? Are you kind? Are you respectful? All good. Like a lot of hillbillies are saying that and stuff. That's the new norm. So, Donald Trump is a racist. It's like, that's tired. It's old. I don't think Donald Trump's racist. I think if there was a Muslim Black lesbian that had a MAGA hat on, is like, I love you, Trump, I think he'd be like, I love you too. And I think if there was a clean cut white guy who was like, I hate you, Trump, I think Trump would hate him. I think it's more about like, do you support me or not? And people pick up on that. But the last thing is endorsements. Look, Cardi B and Eminem, as talented as Eminem is, Cardi B and Eminem and J-Lo and all the Diddy partiers, like mixed with Dick Cheney, that doesn't hold up to Elon Musk, like maybe the most brilliant innovator that we have. And Ron Paul, who has a huge following, the libertarian crowd. And the libertarian crowd goes left and right, But then on top of that, RFK, who really got a groundswell of a lot of support. And he threw, his hat in with Donald Trump. I know many people personally who said, well, that was the convincing thing. People like RFK Jr. They love the idea of make America healthy again. They're recognizing that. And then Tulsi Gabbard, that was for me, that's my favorite politician. I would need a favorite politician, and I would choose her to be president. And when she got on the side of Trump, it's just like, wow, that's a good endorsement. Way better than Cardi B, or whoever it is, Megan Thee Stallion or Beyonce. Like, no, like I just think that people like SpaceX and focusing on health more than Hollywood. I think people are tired of Hollywood. You look at like the ratings for the Oscars and stuff. People are over it. They're over being lectured by people who are good at pretending they're someone else. So I think those endorsements really made a difference, because they made a difference for me. I would have voted RFK in this election if he would have stayed in it. And I would have just voted third party, as I have in the past. I mean, I'm in California, so if I was back in Pennsylvania where I grew up and voted early in my life, then maybe I would have, chosen in the binary. But in California, I'm kind of like, you know what? If I can just add a few more to this popular vote on this side, then it'll send a message for the mainstream parties to kind of adopt some of these policies. But Trump did that without me having to vote for RFK. He recognized the value of RFK and the stuff that he's saying. So I think that's really, really good. Those are my six, though. Those are the six things that I think were really, really crucial in this. It was the economy. It was Kamala Harris saying that she wouldn't do anything different than Joe Biden. It's the Joe Rogan interview, a 3-hour, uninterrupted, long-form podcast, whether it was Joe or not, but someone like him. It was the identity politics stuff. And it was endorsements. Oh, and another thing. Sorry, but another thing is the way that the mainstream media is just being contradicted left and right because of the internet. We have access to everything now, so you could see that the 60 Minutes response that she gave was completely doctored. You can see that now. The amount of information we have access to now just pulls away the curtain. It definitely brings in a lot of fake things and conspiracy theories and stuff like that too. But no longer does one or two organizations have a monopoly on what the narratives that are being told are. Now there's all of these narratives, and there's evidence to go against the mainstream narrative. So before, when the politicians would have the CNNs and the New York Times kind of in their back pocket, there's so much now to contradict the CNNs and the New York Times, the Washington Posts, and the ABC Newses of the world, that people can go, look, I see what you're saying, but what about this? This is contradictory to that, and this seems to make more sense. This goes with my gut more, and there's a whole lot of people saying that. And you can show, clips of how things have been doctored, and you can show that kind of stuff. So again, transparency. Transparency is a beautiful thing. For a democracy, I get it, we're a constitutional republic, but for a democracy, for people to be informed to vote, transparency is a good thing. Let me know what I'm voting for. Let me know what I'm getting into. So those are the things that I think made the biggest factor. Those are 6 things that I think made the biggest, impact on this election. But go into the comments, and I would love to hear what other things that I missed. Maybe it's Trump's record with preventing war, and people are scared of war. Whatever it is, I would love to hear what you think I missed, or what you think were the biggest factors if I didn't cover them. I love talking about these topics. I really love it. So I started a private discussion community where we are going to come together and talk about controversial issues that you can't really talk about because you get shut down or blocked or all kinds of stuff on social media. So a private discussion community where we're going to come around with diverse thinking people. I did one during the election. It was really, really cool. People from all different ends of the political spectrum having polite, respectful conversations because they're showing curiosity. Let's be productive. There aren't a lot of communities where you can do that, where you come in good faith to get curious about why people think differently than you. So if that interests you, go to patterdocs.com/roundtable. It's the Patterdocs Roundtable. And it's something that I'm going to be facilitating a lot of conversations and growing a community of people who are differently minded, but are committed to learning from one another and bridging some of these divides that we have in America. So if that's of interest to you, I would love to see you there. Thank you guys so much, and come back. I'll be doing more of this.